Okay. So let's get started. The first thing I want to ask everybody, because there are two people that have taken these classes before, did anybody do the homework from last class? Yay! So if you did do the homework, I would love if you can share. For those of you who don't know, the homework from last class, we did this really amazing alchemy meditation where everybody created their own portal. And we are going to be, right now, it was kind of no context. So don't worry, if you don't know what that means, that's fine. Neither did anybody else. But I had people create their own portal without much context. This portal can be used to travel to different dimensions, to travel to different times, to travel to different planets, to travel to the realm of the Fae, to travel to the realm of dragons. Whatever you personally would like to use your portal for, the only assignment was to meditate and to create a portal. So I would love to see the portal that you created or hear about it or read about it, whatever you would like to share.
It's loading in now. Okay, so you said the assignment was to make the portal you. So I basically just made a really cool looking portal that I am not quite finished with yet. I was trying to take my time with, and it's basically just a portal in the middle of a steel wall, and with a bunch of things that represent me around it, like my taste in music, paw prints, my astrological signs, whiskey jug, marigolds, stuff like that.
Awesome. Oh, I love it.
Also, to clarify, the whiskey jugs I don't drink, but my great grandpa and great uncle used to be moonshiners, and they would run whiskey from Alabama over the line. So, ancestry in that.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you mind if I share it on the big screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. Okay. Going to share. Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. That's awesome. That is
Thank
such a
you.
beautiful portal.
Also, the eye is supposed to like represent anime.
Oh, I love, yes. My portal would have anime in it too.
Yes. That's one of the few things I can draw really well is the anime eyes.
Beautiful. Yes, you can. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Nice. Oh, that is so cool. I love the little hints of Scorpio too.
Oh, with the tail?
Yeah.
Thanks. I just recently found out what my other signs are. So I thought about adding them, but since I'm not that connected with them, I wanted to wait.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for hosting class.
Of course. Okay. So we are going to go over first, just to kind of touch on all of the review. We're going to go over the review slightly quickly. So if I am losing you, number one, feel free to ask questions. Number two, if it feels like I'm losing you too much and you don't even know what questions to ask, remember that there are 5 YouTube videos that you can watch, as well as these slideshows are already up on the website for you to go through. So first of all, we're going to talk about what alchemy is. And alchemy is solely at its core just the process of changing either a property of matter into a different property of matter, or changing one element into a different element, which would still technically be changing matter, but you know. So it is just the process of changing matter, in essence. But that can be done by using elements from the periodic table of elements and changing them into different elements. It can also be the process of changing matter, such as a really great example is boiling water. You have water as a liquid, and when you boil it, it becomes a gas. And you are changing matter from a liquid to a gas. And that is a form of alchemy. Same thing with freezing water. You are changing the matter from liquid to solid. And that is the process of alchemy at its very base. Now, it gets much more complicated than that. And alchemy took two roads. And the one that we are talking about here on this slide is the one that kind of where it all started. And a lot of alchemy started in Egypt and the Middle East, and it started with ancient chemistry, as most people already know. And studying what made up matter and what made up elements. And in the process of studying matter, we also learned the process of changing matter. And a lot of it was just basic chemistry that we would all learn now in almost like, you know, second or third grade classes. You learn about the water cycle very early on in life. And it took two routes. One route was it became chemistry, what we know now as intense chemistry, what we know now as biochemistry, and the different forms of chemistry that have become scholarly careers and educational paths. One route that alchemy took was becoming chemistry, and what we know today as really hard, in-depth chemistry. And then it also took another route, the magical route, where, of course, not only ancient magicians and ancient witches, but also a different branch of people who were just alchemists. And people all over the world were alchemists. You have very famous alchemists that we talked about from Europe, very famous alchemists that we talked about from the Middle East and from Africa, as well as really famous alchemists that we have talked about from Southeast Asia. And we're going to continue that and talk about the different alchemists from all over the world who did incredible things. And then it took the route of magic and high magic and even ceremonial magic and the different forms of magic, depending on how much you already know about these different branches of magic. Alchemy has a place and chemistry has a place in all of those as well. So we are going to mostly head down the path of how alchemy has affected magic. But we are also going to go down the chemistry route as well. And we are going to be doing some biochemistry and learning about how ancient alchemy affected the subject of biochemistry. And yeah. So this slide kind of talks about the very, very first people who were considered alchemists, where the name alchemy comes from. It is said that it comes from the Egyptian word chem, which is also where they say that the word chemistry comes from. And it was used in reference to the fertility of the floodplains around the Nile. And then, of course, Egyptians and ancient Egypt is credited with a lot of the very first alchemical techniques, such as mummification and the different processes that they would use to preserve the body parts of people who have died. And these are some of the roots of rudimentary chemistry. And of course, when you think about alchemy, like I said, there are two routes. Number one, we can talk about the ancient Egyptians and their use of chemistry when it came to the preservation of different body parts and preserving things that would have decomposed if not preserved. But also, if you take the other route and we discuss and talk about magic and the magical side of alchemy, you can also talk about the ancient Egyptians' view on immortality and the reason they were preserving body parts, the reason they were preserving the human body, and their views on the afterlife and their views on immortality. And of course, when you talk about high magic and high alchemy, you get into this idea of being able to create immortality. And when you look all over the world at the different alchemists, a lot of the goals were immortality or living unreasonably long lives. And that had many different definitions. When you look at the Middle East and you look at North Africa, it became immortality, but on a different plane of existence. So living forever, but not in your human body, living forever on a different plane, living forever in an afterlife. Whereas if you look at Europe, it became much more literal, trying to find a stone and using that stone and creating a stone that would literally give your human body the ability to live forever. So, yeah. And then, of course, we have alchemy being used in China and by Taoist monks. And the monks pursued both the outer elixir and the inner elixir, which we talked about before, kind of being the difference between your physical human form living forever and having this vitality, and or your physical body dying, but your soul living on forever. And then, of course, also you can have minerals and plants being used to prolong life, and then also the use of exercise techniques such as Qigong and Tai Chi to manipulate the Qi or life force inside of the body, which were also the differences between outer elixir and inner elixir. The outer elixir being minerals and plants used to preserve life and prolong your life, and Tai Chi and Qigong being used for the inner elixir and using that to prolong your life. So a lot of alchemy in the beginning, when you talk about Taoism, when you talk about Taoism, and you talk about different ancient Egyptian paganism, a lot of it was based on prolonging life. And then in Europe, we have the Philosopher's Stone. So that's a great question. Sorry, I didn't look at the chat. What is the difference between magic, high magic, and ceremonial magic? That is a fantastic question. So, magic is everything. It literally can be anything. It doesn't even have to be pagan. Magic can be absolutely anything on earth that you see as magic. Magic can be herbalism. It can be using different herbs to help make your body healthier. It can be what you eat and how that's changed and turned into energy. It can be boiling water, which is alchemy and a form of magic. It can be creating silk and creating art, and even monotheistic religions that like to hate on magic have a lot of ritualistic things such as Catholicism that are, you know, can be seen as magic, even though, you know, they can be haters. But a lot of Catholic rituals to me seem like magic. Um, but magic can be anything. It can be absolutely anything that you define as magic. When you feel happy because you hugged your favorite pillow, that is magic. And magic can be absolutely anything. Um, high magic. High magic is usually, there are quite a few definitions, but as a base definition, um, high magic is usually a specific structure of magic. So when you are part of a coven or you are following a specific form of witchcraft or following a specific form of magic. So high magic usually has structure. It usually has other people who have defined how it needs to be done. High magic usually has a place of origin. So something like Norse paganism and the witchcraft and magic that is done in Norse paganism has a procedure. It has a ritual. It has a way that it should be done if you are following the cultural basis of how culturally it is structured. That is a form of high magic. If you are doing something that is strictly based in the structure of Wicca, that is high magic. If you are doing something that is strictly based with structure, culture attached to it, a ritualistic procedure attached to it, those things are usually considered high magic. And then you get ceremonial magic. Ceremonial magic is a very, very, very specific part of high magic. And it is kind of, its lineage is tied back to Aleister Crowley. This is a loaded question. I would look up ceremonial magic. I teach some classes on it. It's a big thing. It's a huge, gigantic thing. But ceremonial magic, in essence, has ties back to Aleister Crowley and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It ties Hermeticism in with different forms of ancient Middle Eastern and Egyptian paganism, as well as Greek and Roman paganism. They took from many, many different cultures to kind of create this modge podge of ceremonial structured magic that was kept very hidden and secret. It has a lot of intense secrets within it. Ceremonial magic, it used to be that you were not allowed to do it and you didn't know unless you were part of the group. So like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, you had to be part of the order, you had to be part of the secret society in order to be able to practice ceremonial magic. Nowadays, ceremonial magic isn't so secret and hidden. You can just like buy books at Borders, or Barnes and Nobles. Does Borders still exist anymore? Anyway, you can buy books at the bookstore about ceremonial magic, but it used to be a much more hidden and secretive kind of group of men, mostly. But once Aleister Crowley got into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, that changed. Anyway, it's a whole thing. It was a secret society. There's a lot. It's a lot. It has a lot of founders. A lot of them are old white men who took from a lot of different cultures. It's kind of seen as culturally appropriative now. There's a lot to it. Ceremonial magic is a whole thing. I would suggest looking that one up. Anyway, yes, it is up on YouTube. There is a class on ceremonial magic. I do my best. I show you all the founders of it and how it came to be. We talk about Hermeticism. We talk about the Hermetic Order. We talk about the Golden Dawn. We talk about all those things. But even then, even with all of that, ceremonial magic is, there's a lot. I could probably do 15 or 20 classes on it. So Google. That one also, I never suggest Google ever, because a lot of times when you Google pagan things, it just tells you the European history of it, which is really annoying to me, which is why in most of my classes, you'll find that I talk about the African origins, the Middle Eastern origins, the Asian origins, the South American origins, rather than talking about Europe, because Google has that covered for you. But ceremonial magic, Google is pretty good at describing, because it is a European, it's Europeans who took from Egyptian practices, African practices, Middle Eastern practices, East Asian practices, and like smushed them together and created their own thing. So yeah. I know, I miss borders too. I thought all religions have some form of ceremonial magic. So, okay, that is a great that's a great point to bring up. So, ceremonial magic, when pagans use that word, and when a lot of witches use that word, ceremonial magic means something very specific. And it is that secret society magic, the magic that is much more modern. And when I say modern, I mean, like the 1920s. Because when we talk about paganism, we're talking about, some of these practices are thousands of years old. So when I say modern, I mean like the 1920s. And it is, but you're right. When you just use the words on their own, ceremonial and magic, yeah, most religions have a form of ritualistic ceremonial magic. But when you use the word ceremonial magic nowadays, because of what happened with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in the early 1900s, you will find that they kind of took over that word and it made it something different. And it turned it into this secret society of magic owned by culturally appropriative white men. So yes, but I don't mean to like demean ceremonial magic. I am just doing your own research is very important. We are trying to take back ceremonial magic and make it for everybody, so that it's not something that was this kind of really classist, racist, ceremonial secret society group that did a lot of harm to the pagan community. And we're trying to take it back. And so I'm not saying that all people nowadays who say they practice ceremonial magic are practicing something that is racist and culturally appropriative. That is not true. In the 1920s, it was. In 2023, it is being taken back and being turned into something different. And yeah, so that's a whole different thing, a whole different class. Anyway, so alchemy. So anyway, we can talk about all these different methods to prolong life, and a lot of different places across the world had these different methods, whether it was qigong and tai chi, whether it was different mummification processes, whether it was in India and using different silk and using different herbs and different foods to help prolong your life, and to use a form of both alchemy and herbalism to improve the quality of life and to have a longer life. These are all very rudimentary forms of alchemy. So then you move on to the creation of steel and flame color when using and working with different metals. And of course, changing the color of flame is a form of alchemy. Changing metal and melting it down to create a sword or a different weapon or to create jewelry or to create armor is all a form of alchemy. And so you had a lot of places throughout India a lot of places throughout the Middle East and throughout Europe that were creating things using different metals and melting them down to create new things. And this is a form of alchemy. Same thing with trading silk and India and the incredible and beautiful silk patterns and creations that they would make out of silk and fabric in general is also a form of alchemy. Because using dyes to color silk is a form of alchemy. Changing matter in any way is a form of alchemy. And so you can bring alchemy into your practice, even if you are brand new. And of course, we are going to get into the extremely advanced alchemy where we're all going to start traveling to different dimensions and creating different stones that will do different incredible things and create alchemy patterns and alchemy grids that will change matter instantly and change the matter of the human body. We're going to do that too. But if you're brand new to this, you can also sew and dye fabric and melt metals and boil water and do a lot of these things to kind of slowly help bring alchemy into your craft. Cooking, yes! Cooking is a fabulous form of alchemy. And remember, anything that is considered chemistry, is also alchemy, because alchemy is just the pre-chemistry. It is just rudimentary chemistry, and then that's what it started out as. And then slowly, as it became this tool for magic, it turned into something different. But anything that is considered chemistry is also alchemy. So yes, cooking and baking, incredible forms of alchemy. And think about how much you're changing matter. I mean, if you just think about the process of taking eggs and flour and sugar and different spices and different herbs and turning them into a cake, and using baking powder and baking soda and the incredible things that happen to matter when it is heated and turned into a cake is amazing. That is a completely different form of matter than eggs being whisked in a bowl. You have completely changed the composition of matter. And you have also not only boiled it and forced the molecules inside of it to act different ways. Because as we know, when molecules are in the form of a solid, they vibrate. When they are in the form of a liquid, they move slowly. And when they're in the form of a gas, they move extremely quickly. So anytime you are changing the molecules and forcing them to move at a different pace, you are creating chemistry and alchemy. Yes, it's a whole new way to use kitchen witchcraft. Beautiful. So we are actually going to move on to, I think, so, okay, we'll start here and then, okay. So the introduction of alchemy to the West came in the 8th century when the Arabs brought it to Spain. And remember that the Middle East and, ancient Arabia, ancient Iran, ancient Persia, they were all trading with Europe for thousands of years. Like, one of the very first trade routes in the world was the Middle East, India, and Europe. So when we talk about how the Arabs brought it to Spain, it was very, very much because that trade route had just existed forever. And it quickly spread to the rest of Europe. So the Middle East is kind of the birthplace of European alchemy. And the Arabic belief was that metals are made up of mercury and sulfur in varying proportions. Remember that this is rudimentary. This is what they understood in the 8th century. Gold was seen as the perfect metal, and all others were less perfect, an idea popular among Western alchemists. It was a very popular idea, indeed, that these lower metals could be transmuted into gold by means of substance known as the Philosopher's Stone. So if anybody's heard of the Philosopher's Stone, The Philosopher's Stone has had a million different references in a million different ways. But one of the ideas of the Philosopher's Stone, which we had talked about previously already, was that the Philosopher's Stone could bring a human being back to life. It could make you live forever. And also it could turn any substance into gold. We are also going in this class to create transmutation circles, and that is one of the things that we are going to work on in this class. After we do a little bit more review, we are going to start creating transmutation circles, just to let you know. So the stone is also believed to be able to yes, just like we said, to confer immortality, the Chinese name for it being the pill of immortality. So in China, it was called the pill of immortality. Like we had already talked about, the Philosopher's Stone could do it all. In Europe, alchemy led to the discovery of the discovery and manufacture of amalgams and advances in many other chemical processes, and the apparatus required for them. Eventually, by the 16th century, the alchemists in Europe had separated into two groups, and we already talked about this. Like I said, this is all just review. I already talked about how it went into two groups. The first group focused on the discovery of new compounds and their reactions, leading to what is now known as the science of chemistry. So alchemy became chemistry, and that's what we know now as chemistry. The second continued to look at the more spiritual and metaphysical side of alchemy, continuing the search for immortality in the transmutation of base metals into gold. This led to the modern day idea of alchemy. And we have here a little ancient alchemy chart and the table of symbols. We are going to come back to this. So this is an important chart. Now remember, this is just one. There are hundreds of these charts. And throughout the world, as we have talked about, alchemy was happening in China, in India, in the Middle East, in South America, in Africa, in Europe. It was happening all over the world, and they used different symbols depending on what language they spoke, depending on the different ways that they wrote, and depending on where you go in the world and what part of the world you research, the symbols are going to look very differently. Or they're going to look very different. So one way that one kind of disclaimer that I want to put out there, if you ever take another alchemy class, which I encourage you to do, if you ever take another alchemy class and the teacher of that class says, this is the symbol for sulfur and only this symbol can be used for sulfur in your magic, they are wrong. Because I can guarantee you that 500 different cultures on planet Earth all have a different symbol for sulfur, and not one of them is right or wrong. It is just a different culture with a different symbol. So remember, there are many different symbols for things, and you are also welcome, once you know the rules and you know and you understand the information and you have the knowledge, you are also welcome to create your own. And don't let other people tell you that there's only one way to do things, because there's not. Cultures all over the world do things very, very differently. There is not one right way, and the one famous guy from Europe is not the all-knowing god of alchemy. There are many different ways to do this. So, anyway. Then we talked about already, remember the little things. And like I had already said to you before, if you would like to add alchemy into your craft and you're very, very new at this, remember cooking. Remember forging steel, turning cotton into clothing. It's all alchemy. Turning cotton into yarn and thread, boiling water and freezing water, and anything that transforms and changes the state of matter, and studying its transformation is alchemy. Okay, so then we have a little YouTube link that you are welcome to watch. And this slideshow is on the website if you would like to watch it. And this is where I got a lot of the information, where you saw me kind of fumbling over certain words. It was because I didn't write them. Here is my citation. I got a lot of it from the University of Bristol School of Chemistry. By the way, so if you would like to further do research on that, I got a lot of it from the University of Bristol and their School of Chemistry. So we are going to move on, and we are going to start, hold on. We are going to do a slight review on what we talked about last class, and then we are going to jump into making transmutation circles. That is palmistry. That is not the right class. Okay, share screens. Here we go. So last class, and kind of the class before that as well, we talked about the different famous alchemists and what they were doing. And according to Pericles, I swear somebody corrects me every class. I cannot seem to figure out how to pronounce this guy's name. I can pronounce every other alchemist name, but I'm pretty sure it's Pericles. Pericles? Anyway, there are 3 primes, or the tria prima, of which material substances are immediately composed of. Now, I have gone over this in every single class, and there's a reason why you should memorize this. This is important. If you are going to study European alchemy, specifically Roman and Greek and Spanish alchemy, you are going to want to look up this guy and the things that he did. He's a very important alchemist. I tend to study a lot of the alchemists from the Middle East, so this is not my dude. As you can tell, I still don't know how to pronounce his name, but if you are looking to study Spanish alchemy and European alchemy specifically, this is your guy. So the tria prima: sulfur, or soul, the principle of combustibility; mercury, or spirit, the principle of fusibility or volatility; salt, or body, the principle of non-combustibility and non-volatility. Hold on, I'm gonna look in the chat. Somebody raised their hand. What's up?
I just wanted to say that it's pronounced as Paracelsus.
Paracelsus. Thank you
Yes.
so much. I was close. I got that.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. So these are very important. It was believed in ancient Europe during this time, which is probably about around the 8th to 9th century, where you are going to start to get these ideas begin. And you have sulfur, or soul, mercury, or spirit, and salt, or body. And so as time went on, it really started to solidify in a lot of forms of European alchemy that if you are trying to add your soul, or even the soul of someone else, into your alchemical grid or into your transmutation circle or into your alchemical ritual, that you would add sulfur. If you are trying to add your spirit or the spirit of something or someone else, that you would add mercury. And if you are trying to add pieces of a body, the body of an animal, the body of a plant, or even the body of a person, that you would add salt. And then, of course, you have combustibility, that the soul was related to, and sulfur was related to, combustibility, that the spirit, or mercury, was related to and correlated with fusibility and volatility, and that the body or salt correlated with non-combustibility and non-volatility. Of course. I'm so happy you're here. I'm reading the chat, by the way. Sorry. But it's really good to have you here. So this is the idea in ancient Europe around the 9th century, and what they started to believe was the tria prima, or the building blocks of alchemy. And of course, because back then alchemy and chemistry were almost the exact same thing. Alchemy had not left and gone down the path of magic, and chemistry had not taken off to become more of a scholarly thing yet. So we are still at the point where alchemy and chemistry are very much intertwined, and a lot of their information is exactly the same. So remember that we hadn't discovered, not only had we not discovered all of the different elements on the periodic table of elements, but also we didn't quite understand their differences. We didn't have the tools or the ability to really break them down. We didn't understand their atomic structure. We didn't understand a lot of things. And so right now in time and in history, sulfur, mercury, and salt were extremely important and kind of the building blocks of alchemy, especially in Spain, Italy, and Greece. Oh, that's a great question. So the difference between soul and spirit. So your soul is going to be this immortal thing that exists inside of you. This immortal thing that probably, they're still up in the air about this even back then in history, because number one, monotheistic religion, and number two, the fact that even pagan religions, there are so many of them that none of them actually agree on a specific ideology. But your soul is usually seen as something that has been around for a very long time. It has entered many bodies. It is immortal. So your soul is either something that has been reincarnated, or it is something that has existed in the universe since the beginning of the universe. It is something that is immortal. It is something that might get put into a different body. Some believe that it might get put into the body of an animal, that it might get put into the body of another human. Your soul is immortal. It has existed longer than you have. Your spirit is more of your vital energy. So your spirit is you. Your spirit is your personal personality and your love for life and your excitement and motivation and all the things that you're interested in and who you are. Your spirit is you. It has not existed before. Your spirit is only you. It has not existed in another body. It has not existed in another animal. It is not immortal. Your spirit is your personality and who you are, and it dies with you. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand? Yeah, the difference between soul and spirit. And yes, we can get, I can get a large print alchemical symbol chart for you. One thing I wanted you to notice is that these symbols are different from the ones that I previously showed you. As I went on my little spiel about how it depends on what culture you look at. This is a very European chart. The one that I showed you before was much more Middle Eastern. It depends on what culture you look at in the world. They're all going to have different chemistry symbols, different alchemy symbols for the different things that they consider to be elements at the time, or even things that they just need shorthand symbols for. Like they did not consider the moon to be an element, but they did need a shorthand symbol for the moon. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Totally. I like that when you think of sulfur and mercury and salt. I love that. I love that. That is a great way to look at it, Andrea. I love that. Okay. So then we go on to talk about this dude. He was a pioneer in several aspects of the medical revolution in Europe. Please always remember that. If you take anything away from my classes, please remember that many, many cultures throughout the world were doing many, many things that Europe was doing long before Europe was doing it. But a lot of people in Europe got the credit. And we could go into a whole another 15 classes on that. But this guy in Europe was a pioneer in the medical revolution of the Renaissance, emphasizing the value of observation in combination with received wisdom. He is credited as the father of toxicology, and Paracelsus also had a substantial influence as a prophet or a diviner. His prognostications being studied by Rosicrucians in the 1600s. And Paracelsianism is the early modern medical movement inspired by the studies of his works. Once again, this information is brought to you by the University of Bristol and their chemistry school. So their School of Chemistry, you can go onto their website and find all of this information. Just so you know. So Paracelsus' alchemical teachings and philosophies. So we're not going to go through all of this. We already did a class on this. But he loved Hermeticism. And since he loved Hermeticism, we are going to start talking about what Hermeticism is. And that is going to lead us into creating our transmutation circles. So first of all, I want to ask you, who knows what Hermeticism is? Yes, it's a loaded question, but I want to hear your answers. I'm sure you've heard the word before. Yes, definitely. Yep. Hermes. Yep, Hermes and Thoth. For sure. It is spelt Thoth. It is pronounced Toth, by the way. Okay, cool. It does not have to do with hermits. Okay, cool. Oh, and by the way, I didn't see that, Andrea. He is from Germany, by the way. He is from Germany, but he is very popular as a Swiss physician and Swiss alchemist, by the way. So, now we are going to talk about Hermeticism. If you would like to read more about Paracelsus, you can. And also, Ji Hong. This guy is my favorite. And I wrote a lot of this information, as well as, once again, it is from the University of Bristol. But this, as you can tell, Paracelsus, I just have to mention him. He's very important. You have to mention him when talking about alchemy. But as you can tell, as I stumbled over a lot of those words, he's not the guy that I've studied. And I've been studying alchemy for 20 million years. But he's not the guy that I study. But this guy, Ji Hong, is amazing. He's the guy I study. Anyway, we are going to talk about Hermeticism, because Hermeticism is what is going to help us create our transmutation circles. So, Hermeticism is a philosophical system that is primarily based on the teachings of Hermes. And for those of you who don't know who Hermes is, he's an amazing, incredible Greek god. You should look him up. He's very cool. And then the Egyptian god, Thoth. And he likes to be called Thoth or Tot. He does not like to be called Thoth, even though a lot of people pronounce it Thoth. That is wrong. It is Thoth or Tot. And so, Hermeticism. A bunch of people throughout many different parts of the world, including North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe, all got together. Not really. They didn't really get together. They all took pieces of each other's philosophies, ideologies, and spiritualities, and the different gods and goddesses from their pantheons. And they realized that because of culture, as well as just because of human psychology, and because of human neurology, and because they had been trading and sharing culture for thousands of years, that a lot of their teachings had a lot of very similar points. When we talk about North Africa, and we talk about the Middle East, and we talk about specific places in Greece, you will notice that a lot of their spiritualities, a lot of their pantheons are extremely similar. Some of that is because of direct appropriation, and some of that is just because of cultural sharing. And the sharing of culture, the sharing of knowledge, trade routes, the sharing of ideologies, the sharing of philosophers, the teachings of different soothsayers, the teachings of different doctors and alchemists. And when you have cultures that have been trading for thousands of years, you end up with cultures that are extremely similar and ideologies that are extremely similar. Yes. Did Europe also culturally appropriate a lot of Egyptian lore and Egyptian spirituality? Of course. Yes. Europe tends to do that. But they also traded with each other for very long periods of time and ended up sharing information and sharing culture. And there you get Hermeticism. And the 7 Hermetic laws, just like Jordy said. Yes. So, in the book, it said that believers in Hermeticism believe that there is a single underlying truth. Ah. Yes. So thank you, Kate. So when you look at books about Hermeticism, one of the funny things is that because Hermeticism is this mix of Greece, North Africa, and ancient Arabia and ancient Iran, and many different parts of the Middle East, as well as India, and you end up with a lot of really funny texts, at least in my mind, funny. To some people, it might not be funny, but I think it's kind of funny because you can really see Greece in there. You can see a lot of the European Greek Catholicism at the time that was kind of embedded in a lot of this, a lot of the doctrines and texts that they wrote. And you can also see a lot of the paganism of North Africa. You can see a lot of Yoruba. You can see a lot of ancient Egypt. You can also see a lot of ancient Arabian polytheism and paganism in there. You can just see so much. And so some of the lines and phrases are really funny because it's such this just modge podge mix of all of these different teachings and customs and different spiritualities. And some people like live and die on the hill of Hermeticism. And especially modern Hermeticism, which has kind of been turned into a much more solid structure rather than kind of what it was birthed as this very funny, smushed together mix of cultures. But you can see the pagan pantheon of Greece, but you can also see Christian and Catholic influence. You can see the pagan pantheon of Thoth and Egypt and North Africa and Yoruba, and it's very interesting. So Hermeticism, you have the law of the 7 Hermetic laws. And the 7 Hermetic laws are the law of mentalism, the law of correspondence, the law of vibration, the law of polarity, the law of rhythm, the law of gender, and the law of cause and effect. And we are going to read a little bit about those to understand Hermeticism a little bit more. And first of all, I would love to hear you guys talk. I've been rambling for a while. So the law of mentalism. After reading the definition of the law of mentalism within the 7 Hermetic laws, what does the law of mentalism mean to you?
Everything starts in the mind. What you create on your mind, it becomes reality. Where as soon as you have an idea, pretty much you creating something new. Once you speak about that idea goes to the metrics. That's something new, something that you just invented to the universe.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes.
I also wanted to mention is that it's like the TV shows that we watch on TV in the future, that a lot of it comes into fact later on. Like for instance, Star Trek. I mean, they had the communicator, which is the flip phone. They had the robots, and they're developing AI robots now. They have big screen visual apparatuses that they used, to communicate, and that's where we have the big screen TVs. It's like everything starts with a thought, and it can come into reality.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, a more personal version of the collective consciousness. I love that. Thank you. Yep. I was just reading the chat. Yes. So, in my eyes, which number one, I agree with all of you. And also I really like to chalk the law of mentalism up to perception. As well as everything that you guys said. but in my mind as well, it is that your world, the literal world that you live in, is just your mind and your brain and how you are perceiving it. We all perceive color a little bit differently. It is just light being reflected through our eyes. We all perceive absolutely every inch of the universe, of the planet Earth that we live on, of plants and animals and everything. We perceive it differently. So the entire world is just made up of minds or ideas in minds, because the world that we see and the world that we experience is just based on our own personal perception. And in reality, nothing is truly real. It is just the way you're perceiving it. It is just ideas in minds.
It's I just want to add something.
Yes.
And okay, during the last 2.5 years, what I've been doing is all about knowing everything about spiritual life, or spiritualism, right? I'm sorry for my English. English is my second language, but I'm going to try to explain as better as possible. As we all know, we have the higher power. Higher power is the creator of the universe. But God created us as His image, right? So we are the co-creators. So everything we create in our mind, right, that becomes pretty much true. That becomes true. Whatever we think, whatever we put in our mind, that becomes reality. Okay, each one of us, we own our own reality. So whatever we have in our mind, and that happened with me. I become so obsessed with a thought that I have on my mind for the past 2 years that I made that becomes real, right? And that was something that I don't really want to be real, but I was so obsessed on thinking about that on my mind that at the end that becomes real. So no matter what you put on your mind, no matter if it can be, and that goes that is one of the 7 hermetic laws, right? No matter what you put on your mind, it can be positive or negative, you can make that becomes real. There's nothing impossible for your mind. Everything is possible.
And be careful what you think, because it
And
can
be
become
careful.
a reality.
Oh, trust me, I know. I already know. Trust me.
Yes.
I have a big power of attraction on me. So that's the reason why I'm here, learning about all of you. I'm trying to learn as much as possible.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, that was beautiful. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And yes, is it how do you pronounce your name? Is it Kate?
My name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking the person who just typed in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's totally okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, cool. So Kate, yes, the number 7 has always been significant. I really love numerology. If you come to any of my numerology classes, that is my favorite form of magic, is numerology. It's
I am 22.
awesome. And yeah, so the number 7 always seems to pop up everywhere. No matter what culture you're looking at, no matter what part of the world that you're looking at, 7 pops up a lot. And it's very interesting because it'll even pop up in multiple cultures around the world before these cultures were ever able to talk to each other or to work with each other or to trade with each other. So it's very interesting to look at the number 7. But yes, I love that you brought that up.
And number 7 is the divine number.
Yep. So the law of correspondence, as above, so below. A lot of people see that in many different ways. As above, so below. Yes. So what does the law of correspondence mean to you? Go ahead.
As in heaven, as in the earth.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add to the law of correspondence?
The law of correspondence. Well, I think I'm just gonna pass on this one.
Everything has a reaction. Thank you, honey.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Me, sorry, I have laryngitis right now. To me, it's love, solidity, trust, and trust in each other, and also trust in knowing what the universe has for us. Don't stress about today. Just try to be.
I love that. Thank you.
I got a little something.
Yes.
So with the as above, so below, with Norse paganism and kind of what I've comprehended with my views on that is, with life comes death, with good comes bad, with, it's the correspondence of both sides of everything. I think.
No, I completely agree. Yes. And I love what the people in the chat are saying. Yes, everything has a reaction. There is always a before and after to everything, action and consequence. I agree. I am definitely, and I love asking what other people and how other people see these laws and these ideologies, because I'm an atheistic pagan. So I am not someone who believes in a deity. And so I view things very much the way that a lot of people have already mentioned, that everything has an equal and opposite reaction, that everything has a before and an after, that all things have an equal and an opposite. And I view things a in a much less, I really enjoy the fact that people bring to the table things such as deities and things such as heaven and things such as an afterlife and things like that. And so I love other people's perspectives on these, because if I was to just tell you what I thought all of them meant, you would not get as much from it. So thank you all so much for sharing. The law of vibration, I'm going to go a little bit faster now because I want us to have time for our transmutation circles. Nothing is at rest and everything vibrates. Honestly, it's very literal in my mind that all molecules in all things, the chair that you're sitting on at this very moment is vibrating. All the molecules inside of all solids are vibrating. All of the atoms are moving. All of the protons are moving. All of everything is moving underneath you at all times. Everything on your body is moving. All molecules are moving. Everything is vibrating and everything is moving all at the same time, all the time. So the law of polarity, everything is dual, all truths are half-truths. Everything contains its opposite. Extremes meet and every pair of opposites can be reconciled. The law of polarity is very interesting. Everything is dual, all truths are half-truths. It kind of goes back to what I was telling you before, where everything is perception. So all truths are half-truths because my truth is not the same thing as your truth at all. our perception on the entire world is completely different. The way that I see everything is completely different from the way that you see everything. Nothing is inherently true, and nothing is inherently not true. Yes, there are facts that exist within the world, but every single person is going to perceive that fact in a different way. Every single person is going to understand that fact in a different way based on their level of knowledge and just based on their perception of the universe. Everything contains its opposite, because all things, for example, one of the opposites that we all contain is that every single one of us is in the process of both living and dying right now. You are both alive and dying right at this very moment in time. All things are. And a tree is in the process of living and in the process of decomposing all at one time. We all contain our opposites. We are all living and dying. We are all vital and we have tons of vitality, but we are also decomposing. Our cells are dying and also multiplying all at the same time. And that is just one example of how we all contain our opposites. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. So, of course, you can totally add somebody to this class. Always. Yes, definitely. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, definitely. So, moving on to the next ones really quickly before we start our transmutation circles. The law of rhythm. Once again, this idea that everything is becoming its opposite. I only gave one example of this living and dying thing. There are many examples. Everything is continuously becoming its opposite, much like the example I gave of being alive. We are becoming dead right now. So we are becoming our opposite. The opposite of alive is dead. But not only that, everything is becoming its opposite in so many different ways. Your clothes, even though at the moment you are wearing them and they are beautiful and they are created from cotton or silk or from different synthetic fabrics, they are also in the process of decomposing and breaking down. Your house is in the process of breaking down. It's continuously becoming its opposite. The only constant in life is change. Everything is in perpetual change. It's in a continual state of becoming. It is in a cyclic interplay of opposites at all times. And all opposites flow together. Yes, the second we are born, we start dying. And I don't think you're alone. You're in the right place if you think that you have a very different view of human death. I think that most of us in here practice witchcraft, and we all probably have a very interesting and different look on human death. So, yes. The law of gender. Everything has both masculine and feminine components. Force and energy, yin and yang, as you just brought up. And when we talk about masculine and feminine components, yes, of course, we can also talk about literal gender, but masculine and feminine can mean so many things in the spiritual realm of spiritual ideologies surrounding masculine and feminine. When you think of deities and you forget for a second that a lot of deities were intended to be actual existing beings, but instead you look at them as just spiritual ideologies. And if you look at them as just spiritual ideologies and the genders that were chosen for them as just metaphysical and metaphorical components to who they are, then you can really start to see the metaphysical ideologies surrounding masculine and feminine, instead of making it about whether or not the person is a boy or a girl, or whether they are neither, or whether they are all of the above. Instead, it's about what characteristics we place upon the idea of femininity. And when you really actually start to break it down, if you don't look at humans and you don't look at what you have kind of been taught to think of as male and female, and or even just as masculine and feminine, and has nothing to do with being human or being an animal or being a mammal or existing at all, but without thinking about things that exist, what does feminine mean? And you get so many different answers, and you get this huge debate, and you get this huge mass of ideas. And what does the word feminine mean to you? And what does the word masculine mean to you if you forget all the descriptive terms that you have been raised to think about when it comes to humanness or mammals or any sort of creature that exists? What does feminine mean on a different level, on a metaphorical level, on a metaphysical level? And it becomes a much more interesting conversation. Oh, I love that. Yes, the law of gender brings me back to previous side, talking about the outer and inner elixir, external and internal energy. I love that. Yes. See, it becomes so much cooler when you talk about it metaphorically. Exactly. I love that. And the law of cause and effect, nothing happens by chance. For every effect, there is a cause. Every cause is in itself an effect of something else. So does anybody have anything they would like to share or talk about when it comes to any of these three hermetic laws?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I passed.
Okay.
Por eso quería yo que, por eso yo quiero que, por eso yo quería que tú estuvieras.
So now, if nobody has anything to add, which it's okay if you jump in and you do, or you can say it in the chat, we are going to start working on rudimentary transmutation circles. Oh, you do? Please go ahead. Yes, go ahead and add what you would like to add. I would love to hear.
Hi, sorry. It's Blythe again. I couldn't figure it out. my
that's
cell phone. I moved from Chicago and Denver, grew up in New York and New Jersey. And I moved to small town, Cumberland, Maryland. And one of the first things, and I don't mean to get into politics because I don't really speak about them, but one of the first things I saw emblazoned on the side of a building was Trump something. And this is very Trump country, even though I'm in Maryland and we are a blue state because of Washington, D.C. And my boyfriend is a bit older than I am. And I don't mean to be stereotypical, but he's never been on a plane. All sort, not that that matters. We get along in every other way, but I am so not a Trump supporter. And he has a problem with, quotes, the gays, quotes. And I'm just like, what is your problem? He's like, they're trying to shove it down our throats. And I'm like, well, you're not one, so don't even pay attention. I was just like, what is your problem? I just, and he knows not to talk about it with me. And I just, it's a person. And his grandson doesn't know if he likes a girl or a guy. And I'm like, would you still love him less? No. And I'm like, well, there you go. So just treat everybody with love and compassion and, get over your own issues. If you don't like it, don't do it. Like a long time ago, I said, if you don't like abortion, don't get somebody pregnant or don't get pregnant. If you don't like gay marriage, don't get married to somebody of your same sex. It's that easy. And it's just, ugh. I mean, I live in Western Maryland and I'm getting used to it and I just keep my mouth shut. It sucks, but whatever. Yeah, but please go along with the other stuff. But I just had to add that in because I don't have any friends here. I moved here right before COVID started. And I think differently than a lot of people here do. But oh well. All I can do is bring love, or pretty flowers, and do my acupuncture stuff and help people. So thank you for taking the time to let me in because it was so difficult. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for sharing. So we are going to get into building our transmutation circles. I know this is so we have about 25 minutes left of class because we started a little bit late. I always add on the extra time to the end. But I'm going to let you guys read a little bit more about the 7 hermetic laws. I am so sorry. I have to pee. So give me 2 seconds. Please don't leave. I will be back in 2 seconds. I have to pee. But I love you. I'll be back. 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. But please keep talking about the 7 hermetic laws and please let everybody in the chat know, because this is the question I'm going to ask when I get back. What is a transmutation circle? And do you know? And you get extra bonus points if you've seen Full Metal Alchemist. Okay, I'll be right back.
Well, happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday.
Hope you guys have been having a good day or evening.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. Okay, so oh, it looks like one person left. So anyway. So the question that I was going to ask when I come back is, does anybody know what a transmutation circle is? And if so, what
No.
is it? Yes, the circle is endless energy that flows within, It is a circle, and therefore it has no beginning and no end. Yes, no, that is why transmutation circles are made in a circle, is because the energy flow can flow can flow freely throughout the circle without a beginning or an end, which is very important when creating your transmutation circle. Yep, everything is changing constantly and going through a cycle, yet evolving. I love that. So transmutation circles, or at least the idea of transmutation, does exist in non-magical terms. So a transmutation is, it's very hard to explain, but it is when you change the nucleus of an element. It is when the nucleus of an element is altered, which changes the makeup and identity of an atom. And that is what transmutation is. And so that is what you would be doing if you were in a lab creating transmutation. And as we know, as I stated before, alchemy took two routes. It became chemistry and science, and it also became magic. So we are not going to be changing the nucleus within an atom because we do not have labs, and radioactive things are dangerous. So do not do that at home. But hold on, sorry, I'm reading the chat. Yes, that is a great way of thinking about it. So that is a wonderful explanation of magical transmutation. So when the soul transmutes into another body. And yes, we do not want to make a bomb. Exactly. There are some alchemists that do use a lab. We actually have an alchemist that goes to this academy. His name is Paul. He has a lab where I'm sure he has attempted actual transmutation of an atom. I'm sure he probably has. That sounds like a Paul thing. But so transmutation magically can be done in many different ways. So I'm going to show you some examples of Yes, so we are all going to become mad scientists. So I'm going to show you some examples of transmutation circles within magic. We are going to talk about the 7 stages of alchemical processes. We are going to talk about calcination. We are going to talk about dissolution. We are going to talk about separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation. And those are all the different ways that you are not necessarily and exactly changing the nucleus of an atom, because for that, a lot of labby things are needed. And a lot of that involves nuclear radiation and things like that. And we do not want to do that. But I am sure one of those words that I just used is something that you have heard of. And for instance, if any of you have ever distilled water, if any of you have ever watched something calcinate, if you have watched something ferment, if you've ever drank wine or beer or eaten pickles or eaten kimchi, you have eaten something fermented. And same thing with coagulation. If you've ever gotten a scab, you have watched blood coagulate. And so on. So that is what the transmutation circle is focused on, is changing matter in a magical way. And that is what we are going to do. And that is going to become your homework. So let me show you some examples of some transmutation circles. Now, transmutation circles, as we get more advanced with this, Yes. Have transmutation circles in the past been written down in very famous alchemy books where you have created a homunculus? Yes. A homunculus is, well, when you put together a human and an animal and you change their atomic structure so that they become one and the same. And if you've ever seen Full Metal Alchemist, the anime, because I'm an anime nerd, you see a very, very sad episode where they create a homunculus, and it's very, very sad. But also you see some pretty intense episodes where creating homunculus isn't so sad. But we're not going to be creating a homunculus in this class. But there's also many different ways to create a homunculus. That is probably the most popularized way of doing it, is mixing human with animal. But there's also other ways to create a homunculus. It can be done much more metaphorically, much more magically. And we're going to talk about that as well. So first of all, let me show you some examples of transmutation circles. So I'm going to stop sharing real quick and exit out of this. Okay. So if any of you have been part of the Academy for a while, you have probably seen some of our alchemy students. And if any of you know Paul, you are about to learn how he creates all of his cool, pretty pictures that he shows off in the chat all the time. Let me find one that's actually, because it's really hard, by the way, if you go online to go find these, a lot of times what you'll get is anime, because Full Metal Alchemist exists. So you'll get a Full Metal Alchemist transmutation circle. That's not what you're looking for, which is all I'm getting at the moment. So give me 1 second. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So let me try and pull this up bigger. Oh, awesome. This is perfect. Okay, cool. So, oh, this one, oh my gosh, it still is. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. This is a good example. I'm pretty sure this one, honestly, is still from Full Metal Alchemist, but it's a wonderful example. And it is a real transmutation circle. This is actually what we will be drawing. So I guess Full Metal Alchemist actually had a real one in there, which I'm sure they did their research. So here you go. Share screens. So this is an example. I'm so sorry to anyone who has seen that anime and reminded you of that terrible episode. Yes, that's a great example of one. And the one on the screen is a great example of one. So your transmutation circle is going to include words, it's going to include symbols, and it has to be a circle. Now, as we get more advanced, as you start understanding things more, your transmutation circle, everything that is in it will have much more purpose, much more intention. For example, there is a reason that the triangle is there. It is not just because it looks aesthetically pleasing to you. There is a reason the triangle is there. There is a reason that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, that there are a whole bunch of triangles. Geez, if you try to count the triangles, there's more just appear. So, the symbols all have an extreme purpose. So, yes. That is a wonderful example of a real transmutation circle, but I'm not so sure the culture that you pulled it from would call it a transmutation circle. But that is a fantastic example of one. Where did you get that? Because that is a real transmutation circle. But I'm pretty sure that's Hebrew, right? Oh, it's like Hebrew with a twist. But yeah, that's definitely Hebrew. And that is the Star of David. Yep. Yep, exactly. Hebrew with a twist. Yeah, it's old Hebrew. But yeah. That's really cool though. That's amazing. That's yeah. Um that actually brings up a great point. Not that there's absolutely, that's amazing. That is absolutely wonderful. I do want to tell people, and that brings up a great point. So we are going to start making our transmutation circles now. And I am not going to give you a whole bunch of instruction or context because that's what I do. We learned a whole bunch of things, and now you're going to create something. And the next class, we are going to actually sit there and talk about it, and we are going to create real transmutation circles that you can actually use to create a spell or to create life or to create whatever it is that you are trying to create. But for now, I want you to make your own without much context. But I would suggest when you, oh no, please don't be done. I love all of these. Thank you. That one's a beautiful sigil. I love that. But so in your transmutation circle that you are about to create right now, here are the steps. It has to be a circle. And I would suggest you write this down. So if you want to write this down, write it down because it's not written down anywhere. So it has to be a circle with stuff inside the circle. Number 2, do not use anything you don't understand. And that's what Jordy's made me think of, because for me personally, if I was to make a transmutation circle and I was to use something like Old Hebrew, or as you see some people using Latin, some people that use Greek, do not use letters, symbols, numbers, or anything that you do not personally understand, because these transmutation circles are used to transmute something. You are going to be bringing something into your life. You are going to be bringing something into existence. That is what a transmutation circle does. A transmutation circle changes the energy within the area of the circle and brings something new out. And if you use something that you don't understand, like a foreign language, even if you Googled the translation, Google might be wrong. You don't know. Don't use a language you don't speak. Not yet. Later, you know, once you, like, let's say you want to use a phrase in Latin, do research. Make sure the phrase in Latin is actually the phrase in Latin that you are going for. Yes, of course. If it's your home language, please, yes, definitely use that. Yes. If it is a language you speak, if it is your first language, or it's even the language of your ancestors or your parents or grandparents, and you understand it, yes, yes, use it. Always, yes. But don't use anything that you have to Google that you don't understand, because you have absolutely no idea what's about to come out of that transmutation circle. Because I can guarantee you, something is going to come out. Most likely, it's going to be metaphorically. It's going to be metaphysically. It's not going to be literal. Who knows, though? something literal might come out of the circle. But most likely it's going to be something metaphorical and metaphysical that comes out of the circle. It's going to be an energy that you feel. It is going to be a vision that you see. It's going to be a dream that you have, or a force that you can feel. It's usually not going to be like, you know, an actual figure or deity or fae or something that comes out of the circle. But there are circles you can make to force a fae to come out. We don't want to use those, at least not if you're not experienced. But anyway, so it has to be a circle. Only use things you understand. If you are going to use symbols, make sure you know what that symbol means. If you want to create your own sigil to be a part of your transmutation circle, you can. Just make sure that you fully understand all of the symbols that you use to create your sigil. If you don't know what a sigil is, that's fine, don't use one. If you would like to take the elements off of an alchemy chart, totally, by all means, go ahead. Just make sure that if you are going to, let's say, use the symbol for salt, Mercury, Venus, and steel, make sure that you know what salt, Mercury, Venus, and steel are going to do when paired with each other. This is going to require research. This is going to require you to do some homework and to have some fun and to really research this. And I promise you it's there for you to research. You can also watch the previous videos. You can also use my website to research this. It's all there. But there's going to be some stuff that you're going to have to research on your own, because I don't know exactly what you want to add to your circle. Remember that triangles can be the symbol for earth, air, fire, and water. Remember that if you're going to use the symbol for water, that you know what that means. Because if you use 7 different symbols for water because you're like, I really like the beach, remember that you're going to have a really emotional weekend. That whatever comes out of your circle is going to be filled with emotion and grief and anger and depression and happiness and euphoria and joy, because water is a symbol for emotion. So those are the only 2 rules. It must be a circle. You must put stuff inside your circle, and you must put stuff inside your circle that you can understand. It can be symbols, words, shapes, whatever you want it to be. Now, next class, we are going to talk about what came out of our transmutation circles, because I guarantee you, like I said, something is going to come out. I want you to take the circle that you create and keep it on you. Keep it on you at all times, and I promise you something will come out. Whether it comes out as a vision, whether it comes out as a dream, whether it comes out as a force or an energy or a shock or a pinch or a shiver that goes through your whole body, something is going to come out. And we are going to talk about what happened next class. And then we are going to start learning how to create transmutation circles where we know exactly what's going to come out. Yes. So if you were not here for the beginning of class, all of this information is, number 1, completely free. This is a free resource. So we have a YouTube channel. I will once again put here. I'm going to post the link to the YouTube channel in the chat. So if you would like more information, if you're like, I have no idea what she's talking about and I'm super lost, go watch our other classes. I promise you won't be lost anymore. Here's a link to our YouTube. Go to the playlist section, and Alchemy is right here. And watch our other Alchemy videos. There's 6 hours of Alchemy classes. Soon, by this weekend, there will be 10 to 12 hours of Alchemy classes. And then you can also go to our website, which is just DiviNationAcademy.com. And all the information is there as well for all of these classes. So, but yes, so we are all going to create transmutation circles, and then next class you are going to tell me what came out, and then next class we are going to learn how to make specific alchemy or specific transmutation circles that we know exactly what is going to come out of them. Hold on, I'm reading the chats. I mean, if you want to summon a demon, you can summon a demon. I'm all for summoning demons. But sorry, I was reading. But yeah, if you would like to summon a demon, and that is part of your practice, because remember, at this academy, we welcome all practices. All practices are welcome. All of us have some weird practices that we do. Trust me. But don't summon a demon if you don't know anything about demons. Don't summon a daimon if you know nothing about daimons. Don't do it. And don't summon the fae if you know nothing about the fae. Don't summon the jinn if you know nothing about the jinn. These transmutation circles work, and you will summon something, and something's going to come out of the circle that you made. Make sure that you know what you're putting on there. Obviously, this is not meant to scare you. As long as you are putting symbols on there with intention, and you understand what you're doing, and you're not putting anything on there that you got from, some different language that you don't understand, or you're culturally appropriating from a closed practice that told you not to, just be smart. Know what you're doing. Don't be dumb. Because, you want to make sure that you are at least mostly sure what's going to come out of your circle. Just be smart. I would say, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yes. See, exactly. Creating one for clarity, focus, and guidance is a fantastic idea. And then you can do research on different symbols and different things that represent clarity, focus, and guidance. You can even use crystals as well. If you know like what crystals symbolize clarity, focus, and guidance, you can put those on your transmutation circle while it sits next to you on your bedside table. You can utilize things like that if you would like to. If you would like to use crystals, if you would like to use the statue of a goddess, you can put it on top as well. Just make sure it's a goddess that you know, that you understand. Do not randomly go to the store one day and be like, I'm making a transmutation circle, so I'm going to go get Anubis and put it in my circle. Be careful. Know what Anubis stands for, because you might not want that. And yeah, so that's a great idea. Exactly. Once again, don't summon anything you don't know how to get rid of. That's a great, yep. Okay. Yes. So, you can spend as long as you want on your circle. This class is going to happen again, probably in about a week and a half. And so you have to be done by then. That's all. You have to be done and have waited a while. So I would say probably finish your transmutation circle probably within the next 3 to 5 days, and then give it time to sit next to you by your bed, to carry it around with you and stuff, so you can see what comes out. And then we're going to show them off in class and talk about what came out. Okay. And by the way, if anybody is interested on crystals and what they do and how to add them to your transmutation circle, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28 hours of crystal classes right here. In this playlist, there are 14 classes with our crystal professor. If you would like to watch them, they're pretty cool. If anybody would like to put herbs on their transmutation circle in the same way that you would crystals, but instead using herbs and putting them on the circle when you put your transmutation circle next to you before bed, and you want to put herbs on it to help summon specific things such as focus or clarity or happiness or joy or motivation and things like that, you can totally watch our herbalism videos. Oh, no, totally. Jordy, please answer all the crystal questions. I was just saying, since I'm about to close this chat, that if they also wanted another resource, they can go here. But no, Jordy, you're not stepping on any toes. Please tell us all about crystals. You're amazing. Awesome. Okay, so does everybody understand the homework? Does everybody understand what we're doing and what we're going to talk about next class? And does anybody have any questions before we end the class for today? I know I rambled a lot. I know today was kind of a lot of review and a lot of talking about stuff. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good. Oh, thank you. So I hope to see all of you at the next class. I really want to see all of your transmutation circles. And thank you so much for being here today.